Okay, I'm here with Peter Coco, founder and CEO of Vleppo. Hi, Peter. Thanks for joining us on Tokel Talk.
G'day. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Yes, it's a pleasure to have you here. Uh, and we're doing this in a pre-recorded format because you're pretty busy these days. You were going to be on the live stream, but things are moving pretty quickly for Vleppo. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We were due to have a chat in a couple of days, but we had a very unexpected side trip into Dubai that we need to do. So it's been a very interesting period over the last couple of weeks, and it only seems to get even more interesting and busy as time goes by.
Hmm. That's right. There was a recent announcement about a partnership or use case with Tokel and
Hmm.
NFTs and tokens. So
Yep.
Vleppo is like a blockchain technology business offering solutions to to freelancers and other businesses and
Yep.
so and so just give us a quick overview of how this works. I know there are some different moving parts that we can get into, but
Mhm.
basically what's going on here?
Yeah. So if we go back, so Vleppo was founded back in 2018, and we were always of the view that we loved blockchain, and we saw huge applicability of that technology, and we also had an eye on how could we take this technology and give it application within the real world. And we very quickly identified that the contracting methodologies that are currently used in society could be greatly enhanced through blockchain technology, and particularly the use of the immutability aspects of blockchain. So that's always been our view: is one eye on the blockchain technology, which is vastly superior to anything else out there, and another eye on how can we possibly bridge the gap between the digital world and the real world. So as part of that, the contracting aspect of business is a really easy and obvious place to start, and that was the piece that we worked with on with Tokel.
Very nice. Okay, nice. So now you chose to use Komodo. You see, being a blockchain technology company, you've built your own chain as part of your solutions,
Mhm.
and you chose to use Komodo. Why did you choose to use Komodo, and how's that going for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So back in 2018, when we were going through just the initial discovery phase of the project, we spent probably about 3 to 4 months reviewing pretty much every blockchain option there was out there. And I, wherever possible, actually spent time interviewing the CEOs and the founders of blockchain companies and protocols. Um, Two reasons. One was just to get sort of our understanding of blockchain solidified better, but two, it was also a pretty thorough due diligence too, to understand, well, we know what we want to achieve. Do these protocols meet that? And the vast majority of them didn't. Um, Ethereum in particular, we had some serious concerns around the gas price methodology that they use. Uh, then I remember we stumbled over Komodo. Now, we weren't specifically looking for it; it just came up through the DD process. But the more we sort of peeled back the layers of their fairly unique approach to blockchain, the more we realised, hang on a second, I think this might actually solve a number of the issues that we were running into, which was largely high frequency transactions. Because you can think about it, with a contract, it changes and it moves around a great deal. If you're clocking up gas fees along the way, that can get very expensive. But Komodo just had a really interesting and unique structure that suited what we were looking for. So we made the decision to go with Komodo. We've been steadily on that path for 4 years now, and regardless of the new L2 protocols that have come out and everything else along the way over that 4 year period, we stand by our decision. It's the right call. It's the right technology. It's vastly superior to anything else out there that we've found.
Very interesting. Some nice history. And I bet there are a lot of people who, for the first time, are hearing about Vleppo and the fact that you've chosen to use Komodo, and it's not very well known out there. And I think actually that's really cool, because it just shows the real world actuality of how this all happens, and it's people doing things that matter. You've found a blockchain solution for you, a protocol solution for you through Komodo, and you're just going at it. And that feels real. That feels right to me when I hear it. And it's pretty exciting to know that Komodo technologies are valued by real users in the real world, trying to provide real solutions. And so that's a great story that you've shared with us. Thank you. And now how does Tokel fit into all of this? Maybe that's going to take us into the contract idea, or maybe that's just going to keep us at the phase of tokens and NFTs. But yeah, how does Tokel fit into this?
Yeah, so when we built this contract management system, and we largely modeled it on pretty much any other contract management system out there, just for ease of use by end users. So DocuSign and the way they execute those sorts of contracts, and then strapped on our blockchain integration into Komodo. But one of the interesting things that came along was looking at how NFTs can sometimes be a little bit grey around when you mint the NFT, for example, and you assign rights to it. It can just be a little bit grey in terms of legal enforceability in the real world. And that's not anything specifically wrong with the NFT. It's more the real world's ability to recognise an NFT and its value, and to be able to, like, for courts to get their head around, well, hang on, here's this digital asset that we've got no real legal precedent for because they're only very, very new. How do we treat those using existing laws and existing jurisdictional legal frameworks? So we got talking with Tokel, and it was a case of we needed to firstly validate whether our understanding of NFTs was correct. And again, we specialise in contracts and various other aspects of the blockchain. NFTs are something we're aware of, we have some capability in, but we're certainly not specialists at the same level as Tokel. So it was invaluable to be able to take our assumptions, validate that with Tokel, and then I guess we just got to the point of thinking, well, what if we did take an NFT, and what if we did embed that into a Ricardian smart contract in our system? Could we possibly use our system and wrap legal rights that are enforceable in the real world around the NFT? And if we could do that, does that then give the owner of the NFT a whole new way of potentially issuing licenses or transacting with the NFT or extracting value out of it? Because in the end, that's one of the key values of NFTs, is being able to take digital assets or underlying digital assets like a video or whatever you like, being able to tokenize it, make it portable, and be able to monetize it. Could Vleppo's contract management system enhance that? And I guess that's where we landed, starting to work with Tokel to validate first, and then actually ran the experiment.
Very cool. Okay, that starts to make more sense, and maybe we flipped it and could get a bit of a better understanding of what you do through the contract management system and such. But it's pretty clear as you describe it. So what you do is you tie the ownership rights or the contract rights using your contract management system.
Yep.
So people are writing this information onto your chain, the one that you launched from the Komodo protocol.
Yeah, correct. So if you break it down into a step-by-step piece, let's say, for example, you've registered, you've minted an NFT, okay, and you've ascribed, let's say, for example, you've ascribed all of the rights that could possibly exist for that digital asset that's tied to the NFT, and you've written that into the NFT itself. So that's great. You've got all the rights assigned within the NFT. What Vleppo does is that we provide a way for you to create a natural language contract, the same way as you would in DocuSign. You could create, say, an agreement or a license agreement in our contract management system between the owner of the NFT and, say, a company in the UK, for example. You say you want to license those rights to somebody in the UK. So you create a license agreement within our contract management system. That gets broadcast to our blockchain. But there's one step along the way that enables you to specify the on-chain reference of the NFT sitting on Tokel, in this case. So what that means is you take that on-chain reference, you put that into the contract management system, and when you broadcast that to the blockchain, you basically have, it's almost like a subset. You have the contract reference sitting in the blockchain with all the parameters of, well, here's the amount and here's the terms and so on and so forth. And obviously the hash of the contract, that's just bread and butter for this sort of thing. But you also have this small section within that blockchain record that specifically calls out the digital asset that this contract relates to. So when you do that, you've created this immutable link between the contract and the NFT that it governs. So the theory and what we believe to be the case and what we've since validated is that by creating that link between the NFT and between the contract in the blockchain, so it's immutable and it's permissionless public blockchain, so anybody can see it, you can then tie the contract language for the license, which is all in real human English and recognized by the courts. And you have this combination of the NFT, the blockchain record of the contract, and the physical contract itself all wrapped up into one. And that becomes quite a powerful tool should you want to enforce your rights, because it's something you can supply to a court. And they're not going to sit there and look at a whole heap of ones and zeros and code. They can look at all that, but they can also see that, hang on, here's a real language contract that specifies the entities, the jurisdiction it's going to be enforced in. Okay, here's the terms and conditions of the contract. Right, that looks like a normal contract to us, but we can also see that's linked to the NFT and it's linked to the blockchain. So there's no question about whether that NFT is subject to that contract. And you've basically wrapped all this into one piece that the courts can understand.
Wow. It feels like we are at the forefront of all of this new way of thinking and doing things with these technologies. I'm fascinated by it. I am also curious because I've often heard things like, oh, you don't need a blockchain for that, or just this idea that for some reason it's like it's not a value add, or it's unnecessary, it's just a gimmick or something like that. So to the people who say, oh, you could just use a database, why do you need a blockchain or something like that? What type of response would you provide them?
Well, I think, and it's funny you say that, because that's a very common thing that gets thrown around. Our response to that is that one of the advantages of using blockchain as opposed to a database is that, again, in our case, it's public permissionless. So it's viewable, anybody can see it. It's out there in the public domain. So that whole piece and that transparency is in my view and in Vleppo's view critical. Now, when you're talking about legally enforceable rights, having that publicly available and knowing that it is immutable, it's not centralized, it can't be manipulated, that deals with one of the big questions around evidence, which is at the core of all legal arguments. It's like, did this thing actually happen? And if it did, how do we know that hasn't been faked or hasn't been manipulated? Well, the blockchain provides that certainty, which then means that from a legal standpoint, you can move on from evidentiary-based conversations to, okay, well, now that we can just accept that this thing is what it is, what are the terms? And it means you can focus your attention on what matters. The other aspect of the blockchain that becomes really powerful is it's not just being used, in our case, and in many cases within the blockchain community, it's not just being used for informational purposes. There's a utility that comes along with this, particularly around being able to do financial transactions. So one of the things our contract management system does, and let's take the example again, you have an NFT, you've decided to license that to somebody in the UK. What you can do with our contract management system is that you can insist on a deposit or escrow money being held in the license agreement itself, and obviously that's held within a cryptocurrency in the guts of the contract itself. Now that's something that no centralized database could do, because at the moment in Web 2 or whatever they're calling it these days, you need to have a contract management system, and then you have a completely separate payment rail, and they might be integrated, they might not be, they're certainly not inextricably linked. Whereas with blockchain, you can put the payments and the contract and everything together into the blockchain. It's all in one place, and it's all immutably linked together. That's the power of the blockchain, and that's the thing that blows me away when I hear comments from, well, you know, this is a gimmick. Well, not really, mate, because in the end, it can't be a gimmick, because the current systems do not provide a payment rail that also exists within a contract. One way I explain it is, think of it like taking DocuSign, a contracting system, then wedging a bank into it. That's basically what this is, and you can only do that on blockchain.
Very nice. Okay, so that's a helpful response and very clear, really, and maybe even worth a rewind to get it really clear. So that's great. And there's just so much more depth, even just within what you're saying there. Unfortunately, we don't have 4 hours to go through this, which I would love to. You're really clearly outlining and describing these things with expertise here for us. So we really appreciate this. Okay, these contracts. What types of contracts might we see? And in your view, like, as you've mentioned about experimenting and doing research around the NFTs and tokens specifically for the contract management and all that. So how do you see this being used? What kind of use cases do you see developing out of this? What lends itself very well to this almost right away? What do you see in terms of use cases and what types of contracts you see for this? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the ones that I quite like going through is, let's say, for example, you've had an idea. It could be an idea for a startup or any sort of an idea at all. And we're talking about IP here. So you can have an idea, you can tokenize it. We've established that, and Tokel's solution to tokenize an NFT. And by the way you guys do it is very, very slick, and it's very effective. You can do is tokenize the ID, and then what you can do is you could create a non-disclosure agreement. So in business, whenever you have an idea, at some point you're going to have to share it with somebody, and there's always that question of, oh, look, I better get an NDA signed just to protect my idea. Now, NDAs are generally pretty flimsy, primarily because the way they're structured, they talk abstractly about, we're going to share information, and that information's private. They don't really specify or narrow down what that information might be within the non-disclosure agreement. So what you can do is create the NDA, and you tie the NFT that the idea has been minted with, and you put that into the NDA. So what it means is you now have a non-disclosure agreement, and you have a specific token that refers to the intellectual property that's going to be the subject of that non-disclosure agreement. Now, what you're basically doing in that scenario is you're protecting yourself with an NDA, which everybody should probably do, but you're also giving the NDA teeth, because you're starting to put some real parameters around what that NDA relates to, which is the NFT. And if you needed to take that to a court of law, you could show, well, actually, here's my idea written down in digital format. We can prove that this document relates to the NFT, because we can do the hashing and check that they're cross-matched. And we can also see that NFT is referenced in the non-disclosure agreement. So again, in front of a court or in the legal system, it's like, well, quite clearly, that is your idea. You registered in this NFT that's sitting in your wallet. And on top of that, that's now sitting in the guts of a non-disclosure agreement that you executed with another party. You've established this evidentiary record that protects your intellectual property. Another use case that becomes really easy, and this is one that I touched on before, is the ability for you to use an NFT to register your intellectual property or an idea or a design, and you can issue a license out. And like I said, you can have money sitting in escrow against the license agreement, such that you are now comfortable to supply them with the actual asset that's tied to the NFT, knowing full well that you can see the money that you're going to get paid in return for giving that asset sitting there within the escrow. So what these systems do, the NFT combined with our contract management system, it makes commerce really easy and really safe for parties that may not have dealt with each other in the past. It removes that whole chicken and egg thing of, well, do I give you the asset first and then you give me the money, or how does this sort of work? That's the beauty, and they're the use cases that jump to mind. Same thing extends to physical assets, whatever you like. Like anything that's contract based, that's the use case that this solution works with.
Interesting. I was going to ask about physical assets too. Does it lend itself well to that? And so I guess you could tie your physical asset, your car, your house, whatever it is, to the NFT, and then you have the contract written up or whatever agreement is to be understood, and then you connect that NFT with it. So it's almost like a second connection that rounds it out for the legal purposes.
Exactly, and that's one of the ways that I explain it. When we were speaking with the Innovation Fund Denmark, and I was trying to explain what it is that Vleppo did. If you think about it, it's like you've got the digital world with the NFT, and that might be tied to a physical asset, but you've got the digital world, and then you've got the real world, which is where the legal system is. And what Vleppo does is we're like the on-ramp and the off-ramp. So we provide a crossover and ability for people to take digital assets and enforce them in the real world. And we provide a way for the real world to understand what the heck this digital asset is and how does it operate and how's it being licensed. And that works for physical goods, digital goods, whatever you like.
Yeah, nice. And your contract management system, if I'm understanding correctly, it is agnostic. You can mint NFTs basically anywhere and still include them within this contract management system.
Absolutely. So if you knock up for whatever reason, let's say you knock one up on Ethereum, you just simply use the contract management system, go to the section where you need to put the on-chain reference to the NFT, put it in, Bob's your uncle, you're done.
Amazing. Wow. Okay. Well, we're quickly coming towards the end of our discussion. However, you know, you've gone over so much with us in just a short time. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think is important for us to know or understand?
I think the only parting comment that I'd make is that, you know, NFTs it's an interesting animal, and there's been obviously a lot of noise over the last 12 months. I think the really interesting thing, and in talking with Tokel particularly over the last couple of months, is there seems to be a real awareness coming to the fore now around using NFTs for things like intellectual property or physical assets, and there seems to be a lot of work in that space, and I really feel that's the direction that this market needs to move towards, because that's where you're starting to take these digital mechanisms and giving it real world utility, and I think that combination, or using NFTs in that way and then combining it with our contract management system, you're providing a very easy solution for anybody to be able to monetize whatever asset they've got, and to protect themselves within the confines of the existing legal system. And that's pretty exciting.
That is very exciting, and it's exciting to see that this technology is spreading thanks to the efforts of people like yourself. Wow, Peter Coco, what an amazing guest, and you've provided us with so much value today to take in and digest here. So thanks very much for being on Tokel Talk with us. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, thanks for having me, mate. I really enjoyed the chat. Look forward to again doing it soon.
Yeah, we'd love to have you anytime. All right. Well, good luck over in Dubai, and good luck going forward with Vleppo. And we look forward to hearing from you again soon. Thanks, Peter.
Perfect. Thanks,
All right,
mate. Appreciate it.